It is Saturday night, and it is Wrestling Night in America for August 3rd, 2024. Hello, everybody. I am Pro Wrestling Torch columnist Greg Parks, and we are here for the SummerSlam post show live on YouTube, PW Torch YouTube page, youtube.com/PWTorch, as well as on pwtorchdailycast.com. So thank you for joining us, whether you're listening on delay or whether you are watching and listening live. Certainly, if you are watching and listening live, you can join in on the comments. We've already got a lot of people commenting in about SummerSlam. Some people loving SummerSlam, some people not loving SummerSlam. So I think this is probably in the couple of pay-per-view / PLE shows that we've done on YouTube where we've had the chat function. It does seem like it's one of the more polarizing shows that we've done. And of course, we've got a couple more coming up here at the end of the month with All In as well as Bash in Berlin. Don't forget, if you are watching us live, but maybe you can't stick around for the whole show, you want to ask a question or make a comment about SummerSlam, WNIA livecast at gmail.com is where you can do it. Always love to get emails. We'll go through those. I've got that open during the show. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about? pwtorch.com/govip is where you can become a VIP member of the Torch. And don't forget, like the show, comment it, subscribe to our channel. We got a lot of great stuff here on the PW Torch YouTube channel, including a 12-minute hot take weekly that I did with Wade Keller this week about ROH. I was on the flagship this week as well, and a lot of good stuff, pro wrestling post shows that Wade Keller hosts after Raw, SmackDown, and Dynamite as well. So again, a lot of people commenting in the chat already. I'm going to bring on our co-host here for this evening. Brandon LeClaire is unable to make it. He's my usual PLE pay-per-view co-host. So in his stead, we welcome on pwtorch.com contributor Frank Peteani. Frank, always good to talk to you here, especially reviewing a pay-per-view or a PLE, because I know we have a lot to talk about tonight.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. And I know I got big shoes to fill with Brandon. You know, you guys always do an excellent job. So I hope I can be half as good as Brandon in this seat tonight as he usually is. So great to be here with you, Greg.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. SummerSlam tonight. I'm still dressed from earlier today. I had our gender reveal. My wife and I are expecting our first child together. So that's the first time I've announced it here on this show, but my wife officially put it on social media today. So I feel like I'm comfortable saying it now. We'd been kind of holding off on that for a while, but yeah, so we're having a girl. So that's very exciting. It'll come at the end of the year. So we're all looking forward to that. And SummerSlam here is this is Frank. You know, I was following along online. Our gender reveal ended up turning into a SummerSlam watch party because it ran a little bit over I think what we were expecting it to. So some people who don't usually watch wrestling sort of gathered around and watched with us. But this was following along on social media. This was a pretty polarizing show, and I think it's being reflected in the chat right now. Thanks to everybody for the congratulations, certainly. But a lot of people saying this was a really good show. A lot of people not liking it, and you know, I think this show was what we thought it was going to be. If you listen to our preview show last week, we expected a lot of title changes. We expected some turns that ended up happening. Match quality, I would say maybe wasn't what we have become accustomed to in WWE, especially the main event, although by design, you know, Solo Sikoa slowing the match down, doing everything like that, everybody getting involved. And the big news being Roman Reigns returning at the end, costing Solo Sikoa his chance at winning the undisputed title. So, Frank, let's take it from a holistic point of view first, looking at SummerSlam. What did you think of the show as a whole? Which one of those camps are you in? Was it a really good show, or were you kind of down on it?
It's a mixed bag for me, to be perfectly honest with you. You know, I enjoyed watching it. I think towards the end I was getting a little impatient, and we'll talk about that when we get to the main event. So I was engaged, but I wasn't happy with a lot of the outcomes. You know, biggest thing, not to get too specific right out of the gate, was if you know you're going to have a main event with interference, maybe not do so much interference throughout the show. And there was a lot of it. There was a lot of outside help, a lot of outside involvement, distractions, people not looking good. So, if you're going to do that, maybe kind of cut that down a little bit. But, and I see a lot of people in the chat talking about it, what they expected to see happened. You're kind of rewarded for watching week to week and keeping up with the storylines, and a lot of what we expected to have happened did happen on the show. So I think that's probably tipping the show towards the good side for a lot of people, and I completely understand that. You want to be rewarded. You want to, especially when you predict things. When you predict things and they happen, that's gonna make people happy. So it's gonna tip the show towards the thumbs up side. So I completely understand all of that. My thing is, and we'll get specific as we go throughout the show. I think there was a lot of outside interference that I could have done without. A lot of people didn't look that good, and Anthony is making a comment that I'm going to highlight later on with Gunther not winning clean. So that's just kind of some of my issues with the show overall.
Yeah, Anthony chiming in, disappointed that Gunther had a distraction victory. That was, of course, Finn Balor getting involved, costing Damian Priest the match, furthering that Finn Balor, Damian Priest storyline, that Judgment Day in disarray storyline. So, that was problematic for some people. And, there was just a lot going on. It almost felt like an AEW pay-per-view where they just threw so much at you.
Yep.
And it's hard to process each individual moment. You had Dominic turning in the very first match. You had the title change in the second match, Braun Breaker winning the Intercontinental Championship. You had the title change in the third match, LA Knight winning the US title. You had Nia Jax winning the WWE Women's title in the fourth match. You had all of the drama around Drew McIntyre and CM Punk in the fifth match. Sixth match was Gunther winning and Damian Priest losing and Finn Balor getting involved. And then you had the return of Roman Reigns in the seventh match. So I think you could certainly argue, and I've seen some people in the chat say, look, it just happened that each story beat took place tonight. It was just the culmination of these stories were necessary on this night. But I do wonder if it was a bit of sensory overload for some people with an awful lot happening. And usually that's a good thing. But I think if you want to quibble, it's maybe a lot to process for some people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, when things happen the way people expect them to happen, it's going to tip the show, towards the good side. So, we'll break it all down. Multiple title changes, multiple interferences, all of that stuff. We'll certainly get to it throughout the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's run this down match by match. I'll highlight some of the comments. If you're watching live on YouTube, first of all, thank you for joining us. I know that there are a lot of places that you could go for your post SummerSlam fix, and we appreciate you tuning into Wrestling Night in America here tonight. If you want to comment about something we're saying, certainly I'll keep an eye on the chat and highlight that. If you want to email us, wnialivecast@gmail.com. Frank, the show started with Liv Morgan defeating Rhea Ripley to retain the women's world title. We talked about two scenarios on this last week in terms of what they could do in this match. The first was Dominic turning on Rhea Ripley and siding with Liv Morgan. That was the most obvious. That seemed to be where things were building. The second option that seemed to be out there was Finn Balor revealing that he was in cahoots with Liv Morgan all along, costing Rhea Ripley the match, siding with Liv Morgan. That would have got you to the same place we ended up with tonight, which was Finn Balor on the side against Judgment Day, or at least against the Damian Priest Rhea Ripley faction of Judgment Day. And then you would have had the possibility going forward of mixed tag matches with Finn Balor and Liv Morgan against Dominic and Rhea Ripley. I haven't gotten the sense that Finn Balor and Liv Morgan have a lot of chemistry as characters, so I can see why they didn't go that direction. But did they choose the right direction to go, first of all, with Dominic turning on Rhea? Was that the right call versus either the Finn story that you could have gone with or any other direction they could have gone with here?
I mean, if you give me the choice between Finn and Liv and Dom and Liv, 100%, I'm going to say Dom and Liv. I mean, I heard a lot of people throw around the idea of Finn and Liv, and it just never made any sense to me. You know, I didn't have Finn turning on Priest until they had their backstage interaction, and then I kind of figured it could happen tonight. But yeah, between the two, absolutely Dom and Liv. Just kind of diving right into the match. I mean, I kind of don't like where we ended up for a couple of reasons. One, Rhea being heartbroken over Dom is a little bit much to take. Like, why would she, a woman like Rhea Ripley, be pining over someone like Dom? I mean, come on, man. I mean, it's not something that I buy. And she kind of looks dumb for not seeing it coming. I mean, I understand that's the story they're telling and they got to get to this point. So, you know, I get it. But the fact that Dom, you know, basically cursed out Liv on television should have been the tell right there. So I didn't particularly care for that. Dom stopping Rhea from using the chair. I mean, if you wanted Liv to retain the title, why stop her? Let her use the chair. I mean, Liv's gonna keep the title anyway. So, you know, I don't know why
Dominic rescuing his woman from getting hit with a chair. I mean, I guess you could
I guess you can look at it
from that point of view.
Yeah, I guess you could look at it that way too. And then you know, but then the thing is, how does he know that the outcome is going to go the way he wants it to go? How does he know that, you know, it eventually is going to tip in Liv's favor? I mean, I guess it's wrestling, so, you know.
That's always the problem with these storylines where you have somebody turning on someone mid-match, if it's a tag team partner or if it's someone from the outside, is you really have to go through each beat of the match and make sure that everything they do makes sense on two levels. The first level is Dominic being on Rhea's side, and the second level is, does it also satisfy the underlying story that we're going to tell by the end of it, which is Dominic turning on Liv Morgan? And that's a very high bar to meet, and a lot of times they don't meet it. And I think you could make the argument they didn't meet it here, but I do wonder if that's kind of minor stuff in the grand scheme of what ended up happening, which was Dominic siding with Liv, which I think is, for a lot of people, a very exciting turn in this story. And seeing, you know, Dominic's a dirtbag. Like this is very on brand for him in terms of what he's doing. So, and I think a lot of people are now excited to see Rhea really unleash that ire at Dom that she sort of held back on when she came back. I didn't think she expressed the kind of anger that I thought she might when she did return in terms of her feelings toward Dom.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we ended up in a place where, you know, Rhea is going to have heat with Dom. Rhea is going to have heat with Liv, and we're going to have another match coming up, whether it's at, you know, Bash at Berlin or on television. You know, that remains to be seen, but it does leave you wanting more. And look, yeah, pro wrestling, one of the worst things, it was John Mazera and I talking about it when we did King of the Ring 94. The worst thing you could be as a wrestling fan is smart. You know, suffice to say, Greg, you and I, and probably a lot of people in the chat, are pretty smart people. So, you know, to kind of think about these things, well, you know, how does he know that the outcome is going to go the way he wants? You know, it's like, all right, you know, after a while, it is pro wrestling, so you kind of gotta, you know, forgive it a little bit. But, you know, it is hard to get past two at the same time. Like, why wait, you know, 10 or 15 minutes, whatever it was? How did you know the match was going to go that long? I mean, if you wanted to betray Liv, you know, do it early and guarantee Liv's victory at that point. So, those are some of the issues that I had. But again, overall, not to repeat myself, we did end up in the spot where we expected to end up with Dom signing with Liv, and the feud does continue. So it does work in that regard.
Yeah, Michael chiming in. The SummerSlam, everything that happened, the outcomes is what all the marks wanted. I guess that's one way to put it. Anthony saying Dominic will get a boost to his worldwide boo tour after his betrayal. Absolutely.
And if I get one thing too, like, it's kind of predictable, because there's just no way, given the fact that Rhea has been getting cheered, all right, and has been getting favored, there's just no way that you're going to continue a relationship with the two of them being together. It just doesn't make any sense. So we knew that we were going to get to this point. So maybe that kind of takes the air out of it a little bit. I don't know for some people, but yeah, we're certainly we're certainly in the right place.
And Michael saying we all knew Dom was going to turn on Rhea. Yeah, that's. I don't know if that's meant as a complaint or not, but is that problematic for you, or is that like, do you see that as good storytelling? Like you know where they're going with it, they execute it in a way that's satisfying to you as a viewer. So if the execution is satisfying, it doesn't matter if I know where they're going. Like, I don't need to be guessing at everything they're doing. And I do think there were enough breadcrumbs to, I mean, certainly there were enough breadcrumbs to kind of throw you off and make you question whether that was going to be the case or not. But I mean, look at what it sets up. Even if it's predictable, it sets up some really interesting stuff. It sets up a new character arc for Rhea Ripley. It sets up a new, as one of the commenters said, Dominic's going to get even more heat now, and it puts Liv on a higher level. I think this whole storyline has helped elevate Liv as well. So I think even if it's predictable, if everybody coming out of it looks better than coming in, I think that's a net positive.
Predictability is not bad. I mean, you watch any movie that you love, you watch any television show, you watch The Blacklist, okay? Raymond Reddington is going to go underhanded to figure out, how to stop the criminal. If you watch 24 for years, Jack Bauer is going to go against the rules, and he's going to get the information that he needs. I mean, that's just how it works. So, predictability is not a bad thing, but it's okay to kind of pick apart some of the story beats, some of the issues. I mean, that's why we're doing this, and that's why people are in the chat, because they wanna see how we feel, about some of the things that took place, getting to the result that we ended up getting with Dom and Liv.
So James in the chat says, thumbs down show for me. Wrestling was mediocre. Lack of clean finishes was cowardly booking.
That's fair. I think that's a fair take, because that's, as we'll talk about throughout the show, especially when we get to some of the heavier matches, that's one of my issues, was the, it's, again, on a night where your main event was clearly going to have interference, it might have been a better idea to clean up the show a little bit and have some people win in a little bit better way. So, that's
and I do want to point out, like, I think that's really become more and more a talking point of, interference, distraction finishes. We've seen a lot of them in WWE. It's been a complaint lately from people analyzing the product, from fans, but I don't think every interference is an example of cowardly booking or WWE trying to book their way out of a match that they didn't want to give a finish to, or anything like that. I think that's becoming a refrain I'm hearing more and more, and I don't think that's always the case. I think each match finish that features interference is different and should be analyzed on a case-by-case basis. So, for example, Damian Priest versus Gunther, I don't think they had interference lead to the finish in that because they were protecting Damian Priest or because they were afraid of having Damian Priest leave clean. I mean, or lose clean. It was because they were trying to advance the Finn Balor Damian Priest storyline of Finn Balor turning on Damian Priest. To me, that's not cowardly booking to do it that way. certainly the finish in Cody versus Solo where Roman Reigns comes out, I don't think is either. Certainly they want to protect Solo probably more than they want to protect Damian Priest, but I don't think featuring the kind of interference, there that they did was any kind of example of cowardly booking. So not every interference, not every finish that features a distraction or something like that is meant because WWE is just trying to protect everybody involved. They don't want to, it's not this 50-50 booking that we're used to a decade ago, right? Sometimes it's to advance the story that they're telling. And I found that was more what we found here than anything else. I do want to go, we've got VIP member Sean from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, who is joining us, and we're going to add him to the stage here. Sean, always good to hear from you on these post-pay-per-view shows. Really interested to get your thoughts on SummerSlam, because as we've been talking about, there's been a lot of varied opinions on this show. So first of all, welcome to the show, and second of all, where do you land on SummerSlam as an overall product?
So, always good to be on here with you guys. Frank, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Greg, it's always a pleasure. So you guys had a lot of good – I didn't hear all the conversation because I was on the way home. I was at a friend's house, watching SummerSlam, which was a lot of fun. Huge CM Punk fan, by the way. Huge. Like, I'm talking massive. You talk about CM Punk fans. This guy is a massive – I'm like, dang, there's not many more better CM Punk fans than you are, my friend. I'll tell you that right now. So I still – really liked the show a lot. I mean, I thought it was a really, really good show, pretty much all the way around. Now, as you were just talking about the Dom and Rhea, Dom and Liv stuff, like, it was predictable, but it was in a good way. Why would you? The only other option I would have seen happening for this match would be for, that people talked about maybe Finn in on it, and maybe he was going with Liv, and so that was kind of a thought, that we all had going into the match. But no, Dom, you can't. For me, it was. You can't have Dom as a babyface right now. It's too early. Like, he's doing such a good job as a heel. Like, why would you want to turn him babyface? Like, that just wouldn't make any sense. And later down the line, 2 years from now, maybe, and it could all work out. But I love the way they did it. I thought it was really clever. Now, the Rhea stuff, do you think her shoulder really – I thought it was I was like, okay, it can't be. But then they kept showing her shoulder, and I'm like, I think her shoulder's really dislocated. Like, something's wrong. And then – she was working with it. And I'm like, how can she be moving and doing stuff and getting her shoulder hit if it's dislocated? But then she did the thing, at the announce table, like trying to put it back in place. And was that a work or was that real? Because that seemed real when I was watching it. And I was trying to get other people's opinions to see, because I don't know anything about shoulders. I've seen a little bit of people dislocating their shoulder, but not enough to really know if it really was. So what did you guys think about that when it happened in the moment?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I thought it was kind of like a story at first, but then she went back to it later on. I mean, she was, slamming her shoulder into the turnbuckle in the ring too. So I don't know. I don't know, Frank. Where are you on this? I'm not a doctor. Like, I'm really bad at, like, I know a lot of people are wondering, Jacob Fatu, was he injured on the splash outside the ring too? Yeah. And like, I'm not a doctor. Like, so it's hard for me to pass any kind of judgment on whether these injuries are real or not. So, Frank, what did you think?
I'm going to do the Mike Francesa imitation and say, all right, I'm not a doctor. Okay. I don't know. All right. So I can't tell you. I can't tell you what
I'm not a doctor. Right. I'm not a doctor. And I didn't even stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. Like,
exactly.
I'm lost on both counts.
I mean, I would like to think that if there was a real injury, all right, she's not going to be in the ring. I mean, the WWE medical team, especially nowadays, they're going to be really careful. So I think it was storyline. Is it? Am I 100% sure about that? No, but I don't. I don't think she'd be doing stuff like that if it was really hurt. I think she's really trying to sell the situation.
Very well.
Which is really, it's kind of odd to do that in 2024 when people are smart, But yeah, that's just kind of my position on it.
One thing I wanted to bring up too before we go back to you, Sean, and I thought of it as you were talking. I know that this is a conversation in the chat too, is the predictability of the card in terms of, I think, the winners of the matches, but also the extracurricular activities. And I guess my question to those people is, okay, Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley, what would be an unpredictable result there? Would it be Dominic staying with Rhea? I mean, is that more entertaining, even if it was unpredictable, than Dominic siding with Liv? Does it give more possibilities storyline wise going forward if Dominic stayed with Rhea, even though that would be unpredictable, as opposed to the predictability of Dominic going with Liv? So, I mean, unpredictability isn't always the better option when you're trying to tell a story, as WWE is here. So that's kind of the thing that ran into my head as you were talking, Sean. But I'll kick it back to you for any other comments you had. I know you were a fan of this SummerSlam show. So anything else you wanted to bring up about it?
Yeah, there were definitely a few things. Going back to, I didn't see Raw, so did they make, like, I know Rhea seemed totally with Dom 100%, and that's what I was worried about, the last couple weeks was, if Dom's with her, does she feel so comfortable with him that when he turns on her, but I liked at the end when they showed her in the ring after the match, she was just pissed. It wasn't like, oh, woe is me, I'm so sad that he did this to me, blah, 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 blah. She was just like, I want to get my hands on him. I can't wait to get my hands on him type. So that was good. And I'm curious to see where they go with that. But that was good. Made me feel a little bit better about the whole thing after that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about the Drew Punk and Seth because go ahead, Frank. Yeah.
Sure. One thing I want to ask you guys, okay, before we move forward, is it me or did they kind of delay the turn a little bit? Like, in other words, she gets the, Liv hits the Oblivion, right? She pins Rhea and everything. And then Dominic is walking away kind of smiling a little bit. And then they take about 10 to 15 seconds. And I'm like, well, did he turn or did he not? Like,
I thought they were going to stretch it out and like make you tune into Raw to figure it out. At that point, I thought it was like, are they really saving that? Are they really not doing it here? That's what I thought when I saw that.
Like, I thought it just went down weird. Like they gave it away, but then they moved away from it. And then they went back to it. And it was just like, I don't know, maybe the camera wasn't in position or something like that, because normally you would see, he would look stunned, whatever. And then Liv comes outside and then they can go suck face and, away we go. But, I don't know. I just thought that the whole the sequence of that, was a little bit off. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, it was oddly timed, I felt.
It was.
Yeah. It was. Okay. Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, for sure. So going to the Drew Punk, because I have a lot of thoughts on that. So I thought the match itself I thought Punk did a pretty good job in the ring. He looked healthy. He moved around really well. And he didn't look like he got injured, which was a bonus. Thank you. Praise the Lord. Punk might be okay after this match. So that is an amen. That's a plus going into this.
His next match is in a year from now, right?
Like, we gotta wait till WrestleMania to see you wrestle again.
WrestleMania 22.
Oh my gosh. So, okay, so Seth, I still, people have said they're not a fan of his character, and I agree. I necessarily haven't been really either. And tonight was kind of the same. Like, he's trying to own the ring, and this is my ring crap, and this is my. That. No, I didn't like it either. I thought he was just trying to take the stage from the two of them, and that wasn't a good thing for me.
This is my ring. This is my company. I could have done without that. Yeah, I didn't like that. Sorry.
I think that's always been his complaint about CM Punk, though. Specifically, he feels like CM Punk is intruding. His problems with CM Punk go pretty deep. So I think he's resentful that Punk is in WWE after all of the things that Punk has said about WWE and all that kind of stuff. So they haven't really laid that out as bare, I don't think. But, clearly Rollins has a problem with Punk and his attitude and all that stuff.
Yeah. And so then, before the match, like, he's talking to both of them, and I'm like, just get the match going already. Like, stop talking to these guys. Like, let's go. Like, we're here to see this good. But the match itself was good. Like, the work was good. Mm-hmm. So the talk of the match was, you have Punk with the bracelet. Like, I understand now. People have said, and I agree with this point as far as, yes, Punk can't let stuff go. That is true. That part of the story technically makes sense. But when you have him is a babyface so focused on that damn bracelet that he's so not focused on winning. He's got him in the Anaconda Vice for crying out loud, and he's worried about the bracelet. It's like, dude, choke the guy out. Like, that's your goal, is to choke him out. And he's worried about the bracelet. And then they kept going to that with Seth. Like, he put in, Seth grabs it from the ring and puts it on. And then he looks at it, and he's so worried about Seth with the bracelet on. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, that to me makes Punk look weak when he's so worried about that. What do you guys think?
It falls under the category of that's the story they're telling. So you got to kind of go with it. But it still makes Punk look weak. I mean, we're not in a movie, we're not in a television show, we're in a simulated sport, so you can control it. But yeah, it does make him look stupid. Like, win the match, okay? Win the match, beat the guy that, prayed that you missed WrestleMania and you ended up doing it, and then deal with the bracelet later. But he got fixated on it because that's the story that they're telling. And I got to credit, I don't know if you read Jason Powell's report, but it was golden.
Not yet,
Punk's,
no.
Yeah, I'm going to give it away. I don't care. Punk screwed Punk wearing Bret Hart looking tights. I thought that was the quote of the year when I saw that. Because that's what he did. I mean, he screwed himself, first, with Seth wearing the bracelet and, that whole thing. So, it's like I said, it's the story they're telling, but you can't help the results of the story and the after effects of the story. And I wonder too, before I throw it back to you guys, I wonder in a way if it's their way of kind of testing CM Punk to see if he'll implode, because we know, and there's a history of when things don't go Punk's way, then we start to have problems. So I wonder if this is their way of saying, okay, this is what you're going to do, and behind the scenes, let's see if he plays nice. And if he doesn't, then we'll move on. And if he does, then everything is good. So take those couple of thoughts in mind.
Yeah. So the bracelet thing to me was fine as a small piece of a larger feud. I thought it really helped because before that segment took place on SmackDown, where Drew beats up Punk and takes the bracelet, there were a lot of people who were talking about how Drew was coming across more as the babyface in this feud instead of Punk. And I think that segment where McIntyre bloodies Punk, takes the bracelet, sort of reset things a little bit back to Punk as the true babyface and McIntyre as the heel. People will still disagree about that. I get it, but that's obviously the way WWE is seeing it. So as a piece of this larger Punk versus Drew story, I thought using the bracelet to get Drew back on the heel side, Punk on the babyface side, is fine. But to make it the focal point of the match, to the point where Punk is now being distracted by it, I thought was a bridge too far for me. So I didn't care for that aspect of it. I agree with you guys on that. I understood using it as a tool within the storyline, but I didn't like it being the focus. And, to Frank's point about testing CM Punk, Marcus and I talked about this. Marcus Arias, pwtorch.com contributor who is in the chat tonight. We talked about this last week because this is a very common talking point on social media. But to me, I have to imagine that Punk has he's pretty involved in his storyline. Like, I don't think it's a case of WWE and the writers throwing Punk a script on a Raw episode and having him go, and recite it. So this may be Punk's preferred direction. We don't know. You have to imagine that given the money they're paying him, given his stature and his push, that he has a significant say in the storyline. So I don't think we can rule out the fact that he may be the driving force behind this storyline. And maybe he doesn't realize how it makes him look from the outside within the storyline. So just throwing that out there for a discussion point as well.
Yeah,
I think that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and my friend that was a CM Punk fan, he just he was saying the same thing. He was like, because I guess the work rate I thought was really good. I really did, like for the stuff they did in the match. I just thought he's like, yeah, it makes Punk look weak. I'm like, yeah, it does. It really does. Yeah, you can say it is part of the story, but that's to make that the focus of a match like that at SummerSlam. And now I like that you have still the Drew Punk stuff going on. Like you can still keep that going, and I'm assuming that's where they're going for the next little bit here. But again, I don't assume he's not wrestling right away. So I don't know if you're just going to have him wrestle again at one of these next couple pay-per-view or PLEs, or if you're just going to wait, because you still have Punk Seth. I'm assuming that's where they're going for Mania. So I'm really curious where the Punk Drew stuff goes for here. Do you have Punk get his win back at, maybe Saudi Arabia? Oh God, hope not.
Well, you got the Berlin show coming up, so I wonder if they're going to go triple threat over there, because that would be kind of a logical place to do that, And then they're really pumping this Atlanta show, right? When they go down for Bad Blood. Mm-hmm. So, I mean,
I guess the question is, do you do the triple threat before you do the Punk McIntyre rematch?
Yeah.
If you're Punk tomorrow night on Raw, are you coming out saying, I want a rematch with Drew? Seth as the guest ref distracted me. My beef is still with Drew. I want a match with a real referee for that. Or do you say, Seth cost me the match because he took the bracelet. Let's do it in a triple threat now. So there are a couple ways they could, admittedly, but I mean, I could see them going. He's got an argument to take it either direction. So I just wonder, is it the triple threat first or the rematch with Drew? Because I think we're probably all in agreement that those are two matches that are going to happen.
Yeah.
But my question is just in what order?
I got it, actually. I got the match. You guys ready?
Ready.
Bracelet on a pole match. Okay. We've had Judy Bagwell on a pole,
we've got Frank Russo here in the I'm
telling you, bro, they're gonna do it, bro. Bracelet on a pole match. You gotta get them to watch, and that's the way to do it, bro.
Right. So I'm curious to see where they build this up, because you do have feuds, with both all three guys, and it's still intriguing to where they end up. Other than I think it's Punk and Rollins at WrestleMania, like that. I think it's going to happen regardless. But it was fine. Like I said, the work was fine. Just the finish, just and everything in between, I didn't really necessarily care for.
They have a lot of options, and I think they kind of want it that way, because the Bad Blood show, they're going to do a Hell in a Cell, right? Because that's the that was the first one, right? 1997. So, you're talking the 27-year anniversary, if my math is correct. They're going to want to do it. I mean, do they do a triple threat Hell in a Cell? I don't know if Marcus was the one that suggested it. Somebody suggested it here recently. I mean, you could do that. You do something at Berlin, where, the three of them, something happens, and then the only way to settle it is a triple threat Hell in a Cell. That's a possibility. I mean, we're just going to have to see Raw. We're just going to have to see the way things play out, but they definitely have options. They definitely have a lot of ways to go.
Just to jump in here, Tyler in the chat said he was there live. Top 5 most over guys. And pops and crowd reaction during the night. 1, Roman Reigns, obviously. Number 2, Cody Rhodes. Number 3, LA Knight. Number 4, Damian Priest. Number 5, Braun Breaker. Notably absent from that list, CM Punk. So if Tyler wants to put any other observations from being there live in the chat, we'll discuss them here. Sean, anything else that you want to bring up about SummerSlam?
Yes, I have a few things. I did want to say, just going back to LA Knight, I thought the match that he had with Logan was really good. I actually enjoyed the match quite a bit. I thought some of the moves and just the wrestling was really, I thought really crisp. LA Knight, since he's been around, that was the kind of the knock, is he's not as good in the ring as some of the other guys we've seen. But I think he's gotten a lot better. I think the match was smooth, and I thought it was well worked. I mean, you had the Machine Gun Kelly stuff, which was fine. Logan does that stuff anyway, so it was fine. I mean, I didn't love it, but it was what it was. But the finish I thought worked. The LA Knight is the right move to have the U.S. title. He's done a really good job, and I think that's a good mid card title for him to have and to do some good things with. He's still over, and so I wanted to hear what you guys thought about that match and the finish and everything in between with those two guys.
I thought, to me, that was the surprise match of the night. I was not really expecting a ton going in, but I thought they executed really well. I thought the crowd was behind LA Knight in a positive way. I thought it was the right finish. Knight going over, winning the United States title made sense at this stage to put the title on him. So, and Logan Paul was a really good U.S. champion. Like, I thought he was very effective at getting heat as the champion. I thought he brought a lot as a character to that title, brought it to life a little bit. But no, I thought this was my surprise match of the night. I was really impressed with the work in this one. Frank, what were your thoughts on Knight versus Logan Paul here?
I didn't love it as much as you did, but I didn't dislike it, if that's fair. It kind of feels a little empty, Knight beating Logan Paul, who really wasn't around as much and really not defending the title as much. It didn't have the same impact. Not that it was going to, but Sammy beating Gunther for the Intercontinental title was a huge moment, ending a 2-year reign. This was the right call. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not against it, but it kind of felt a little empty. And someone pointing, and Darrell, our good buddy down there, I haven't talked to him in a while. Hope you're doing well, Darrell. The foot being under the rope is a big key, and that's something that it's a card he could play.
I noticed that as well.
Down the line. I don't know if they're going to, play it at the Berlin show or the Saudi show, but, he'll certainly be back. Match was a little rough in a couple of spots. That table spot early on was a little scary. I thought Logan on that moonsault, I don't know about you guys, but he almost overshot LA Knight. I don't know if LA Knight was in the wrong spot or Logan just got too much juice on it, but that scared me a little bit. And the superplex that Knight hit, I didn't think landed very well. It was a match that, like, Logan kind of dominated a little more than I would have liked, especially when you were going to have a match coming up with Nia dominating Bayley. That makes more sense. A woman her size dominating Bayley. I thought Knight could have gotten a little more. Not that he got none, but I thought he could have gotten a little bit more. So I didn't love it as much as you guys did, but I did like the decision. I mean, if Knight didn't win this match, I thought that would have been a terrible call. So at least they got that part of it right.
Yeah, I thought, because it looked like, I almost thought the suplex coming off the ropes was supposed to be that way. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know. Maybe LA totally botched it. I thought it looked good when they showed the replay. I thought it looked really good. Now granted, his neck hit kind of hard. Because it looked like almost like a brain buster, like a muscle buster type of kind of look to it.
Yeah.
So
he got folded up a little more than you're used to seeing on that.
Yeah, so it was, but
on the descent, it didn't look good. On the descent, it didn't look right.
Yeah, but I thought more. What earlier what I was going to. I think LA has gotten better in the ring over time. Yeah, he's never going to be a ring general like Gunther. He's never going to be that kind of a guy. But I think for what he's done, he's gotten a lot better. He's in a good spot for where he's at on the card. I think they've done a good job with him. I think he's. For that U.S. title, I think he can have a good run with it. I'm curious to see what kind of opponents they have for him. That'll be interesting. It's hard to tell right off the bat, but I think they can do some good stuff with him. I wanted to bring up too that I thought Nia. Just wanted to bring up Nia's really doing a great job as a heel right now. I think Nia's the match. I thought the match was good. It was the least intriguing of them all, just because Bayley just feels so flat as champion, and and it's really sad to say. Again, I'm a Bayley fan. I love Bayley. I think she's had a really good career for a long period of time. I just think what she's doing right now just feels so flat, and there's not much juice to it, and her promos don't feel the same that they used to. And Again, there's more they could have done. As a heel, she was fine, but now as a face, I thought when she turned face, they could do some fresh stuff to build that up, and they just have not done that. And Nia has just done a phenomenal job. So I just wanted to hear what you guys real quick have thought of Nia as a heel, and I think she's on a good trajectory and has done really well so far.
Yeah, she's been an effective heel, no doubt about it. The match was limited just based on, Nia is limited in what she can do, and Bayley, I think, is even limited at this point, a little more than she had been in the past. I mean, when you've got women on the roster with the athleticism of a Bianca Belair or a Jade Cargill or a Tiffany Stratton or some of these other women who you're seeing week in and week out, Nia Jax versus Bayley isn't going to deliver the same kind of athleticism and the same kind of stuff that maybe you're used to from the women's division. But certainly Bayley as a character has not taken off as a babyface the way that you would have hoped when she left Damage Control. She just hasn't been able to show that level of personality that she did as a heel. I mean, the work that she did during the pandemic as a heel, the work that she did at times leading Damage Control as a heel, she certainly was able to show a lot more personality and seemed to be a lot more outgoing than she is as a babyface. And I'm not sure if it's just because she really hasn't found her voice yet, or her character hasn't really had anything to really sink her teeth into, I think, especially outside of the Damage Control stuff. So, Frank, your take on Jax versus Bayley and then the Bayley character as well.
Yeah, I mean, Jax versus Bayley was what it needed to be. I mean, she, pretty much dominated the match. It probably turned out better than Mabel versus Jeff Jarrett from SummerSlam 94. I wonder if we're going to talk about that real soon here, Greg. Wink, wink. No, but it went the way I expected it. And I was about to highlight Ken's comment there that she seemed to have lost a step. And she has, I mean, Bayley just might be one of those people, after the whole hugger gimmick, how successful that was in NXT. Once they brought her to the main roster, they completely dropped the ball.
Oh, Vince. Her. Oh, gosh. He screwed up the way. That could have been so much. You know how much millions of dollars he could have made with that character?
They left so much money on the table with her. When they had her win the title the way she did the first time, and she didn't relinquish it, she just completely lost who she was. And I don't think she ever regained it, at least as a babyface. And, I wonder sometimes, just to add an alternate perspective, I wonder if she's just one of those characters as a babyface. After a run like that, maybe it wasn't there to begin with. Like, in other words, maybe it was never there to recapture on the main roster. I don't know. I mean, maybe if H was in charge, the main roster back then, maybe we would have seen a continuation or at least a freshening of the character. But ever since she turned back, which was the right move. I mean, it was the right move to turn a baby face. It just, Father Time, sometimes Father Time just wins. And
Father Time is undefeated.
It really is, right? And it's somebody on another podcast brought up the Jake Roberts rule. I think Jake Roberts once said, or maybe somebody else said about him, after 6 years, you're kind of done. And that's kind of where we are with Bayley. I mean, she's been on the main roster since 16? And we're 8 years. So that's 6 plus 2, 8.
No.
Sometimes the magic just runs out after a while. I mean, it happened with Becky, right?
Mm-hmm.
So might just be happening with Bayley, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. We'll have to see if they can kind of re-energize her here. The loss, we'll see where she goes from here. Sean, we've got some other people that we're going to put on, so we appreciate you calling in and talking to us here about SummerSlam, as always, my friend.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. I consider both of you friends, and I'm hope to be on with you very soon. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent.
Good to see you face to face, Sean. Absolutely a pleasure.
All right. We've got Andy from Houston who's been waiting patiently. We'll put him in. Andy, thank you for joining us, VIP member. Andy, what did you think of SummerSlam tonight?
It was pretty decent. I wouldn't rank it among my top 5 SummerSlams beyond any means, but it certainly delivered in some spots if you ignored some of the negatives. But those negatives were pretty stark as far as I'm concerned. I know you guys already brought up the CM Punk match, and I have been a diehard fan of his since his ECW vignettes, but man, does he look like a raging idiot for zeroing in on that, I guess, friendship bracelet. That is such a trifling token to be obsessed over for what I would consider a blood feud between Punk and Drew. So yeah, I'll continue to be a supporter of his, but I have my interest in what he would do with Drew and Seth has dropped down tremendously as a result. But the other thing I was going to bring up was just the way people turned in these matches, like with Dom and with Finn. Like, do you think WWE can actually improve the way they implement logic into these turns? Because it seems like you have to really suspend your disbelief to buy into what they're doing when it seems like their turns are very inopportune. Like, they don't really have any flow of logic to them. They don't feed into the finish of the match right away, or they just make people look really stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you guys have already talked about that tonight, or if you want to go over that again.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that in terms of the Dominic turn, especially during that match, and you know, there were other times that he could have done it that would have been more opportune. Why wait until so late in the match? All of this kind of stuff. I totally understand that. Totally get that. I think people were so stoked to see the next chapter in this because a lot of people love the Rhea, Dom, Liv Morgan love triangle, such as it is, that when you have something hot like that, people are more willing to overlook those minor inconsistencies. And I think that's what you've got with that storyline. Certainly those inconsistencies are there. I'm not saying they're not, but when you have a storyline that people are really interested in seeing, those are kind of glossed over. And I think that was the case there. Frank, I want to go back to what Andy said about Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, because I know you had a comment to make, but I'll just throw this in as well. You know, the Larry the Dog, right? I mean, he came to prominence in the whole AEW backstage fight where he was there, all this kind of stuff. Other times he was talked about too. I don't know that the WWE audience has that connection other than just knowing it's CM Punk's dog. And hey, maybe if you're a dog lover, you can kind of relate to how Punk feels. But It hasn't really been drilled down into us, like how much that dog means to Punk and how it's been mentioned elsewhere throughout his wrestling career. And I also wonder how many casual wrestling fans understand that his wife is a former WWE wrestler. I mean, he's kind of made passing comments about it at times on TV. It does make you wonder if she's going to get involved in this now with the heavy emphasis on the bracelet. Does she come up and, slap Drew McIntyre or something like that at ringside? But without that context and without the context of Larry the dog, I think fans are kind of missing out on an important step in this storyline if WWE is going to emphasize this bracelet so heavily, which apparently they're doing.
Yeah, it's hard to say how many people know about it. I mean, a lot of people are social media savvy right now. Is all 57,000 or whatever the hell was in the building tonight? Are they all checking out social media? I have no way of knowing that. Neither one of us do. I mean, I assume, Andy, you're a big AEW watcher. I don't know, but the three of us here in this. Go ahead.
I keep up with AEW, listening to the Fix, but I have Fubo TV, and they do not have a deal with the Turner broadcast station, so I can't even watch AEW to critique it myself.
The point being, though, you sound smart enough to be aware of it, so I would assume enough people are aware of it, and even if they're not, I think they're telling a story in a way that conveys how important that bracelet is to CM Punk. So, even if, half the audience knows it or a quarter, then it's really probably not a big deal. And I know I'm probably sounding like a hypocrite because we criticize AEW for assuming people know things. So I am kind of speaking out of both sides of my mouth here. But since you brought up CM Punk, there was something I wanted to bring up earlier, and I didn't get a chance to. My wife turned around to me. She was watching the show with me. The kids were watching too. She asked me, how do we feel about CM Punk being back in the WWE? And I kind of sat back for a second, and I kind of said, it's not the same, And what I said was, it's kind of funny. You look back at the pipe bomb, right? And you think about a lot of the things that he said that night. And a lot of what he wanted kind of came true. I mean, WWE is in a better place. We have AEW. We have really good wrestling out there. People getting over that probably wouldn't get over before. But Punk is just kind of like, it's not the same. It's not bad. It's just not the way it was. Like, Punk was so much better when there was conflict, when the WWE was the system and they were the, the evil, evil empire, whatever you want to call them. And he was kind of against the company. Well, now that it's not that way, and now that he's playing nice, it's just really not the same. So I kind of wanted to get your guys' take on that, Greg, if you want to start.
Yeah, Marcus has a good point in the chat. It's hard to be a rebel when there's nothing to rebel against, right? I mean,
yeah.
And Brock also makes mention in the chat, he's 10 years older now. So it's hard to, when you're younger and you want to shake up the system and things like that, people buy it. But when you're older and, now there is that alternative in AEW and you're back in WWE, it's hard to keep that same energy. It's hard to, at some point, you've got to transition into a different character. And so I think we've seen that a little bit with Punk. He's not the pipe bomb throwing guy he was of a decade ago, right?
Yeah.
He, and so some of that energy does feel gone. Like when you're not rebelling against something, you kind of don't seem as energized. And so I think that's kind of where Punk is with that. Andy, any thoughts on that?
I definitely agree with you that so I remember mentioning his ECW vignettes. He pointed out some of his tattoos and their meanings, and one of them was in a war against the system. So a lot of his appeal has always been as somebody who is fighting an uphill battle, kind of like on behalf of those who need fighting for. But now he's in such an elevated veteran position and being welcomed by the system that a lot of that upstart appeal is gone, like you guys were mentioning. And so that makes it hard for him to generate a new following. And really all he's left with is, the people who rose up with him in fandom. And he's just going to keep losing them if he associates like himself with just idiotic actions and booking. At least that's my take on the matter.
Yeah, fair. That's all fair.
Andy, anything else for us about SummerSlam tonight?
Just like that. What is your take on Damian Priest and the way he lost by losing his temper? I guess he wasn't, infuriated over a trinket. He was just like mad at Finn for just a small betrayal of putting someone's leg on the rope. But do you think he's lost any standing, in the eyes of fans by just losing his focus on the match and trying to attack Finn when he hadn't yet won anything.
Yeah, that's a tough one because, Priest has been kind of portrayed as having a bit of a quick temper. So I guess this kind of fits in with him. But, it's just hard for me to accept that when a title like this is on the line, that you can get so easily distracted. And maybe it's an exception because Finn Balor is very close to him, and this was a betrayal of Damian Priest for sure. And sometimes in the heat of that moment, with all that adrenaline going through you, you could buy someone kind of being distracted. But Frank, what were your thoughts on that?
My problem with the situation is that Gunther is this really, to me, very special talent that they have. Somebody that could be a centerpiece act for them for a long time. And, despite it being the secondary world championship, it's still a world championship, and it is the top title on the show in which he resides. So I think he needed to win that match without outside interference, especially on a show that had multiple matches having interference. I understand the story that they told. I understood what they did. Finn getting involved and putting Gunther's foot on the ropes. By the way, did Priest have to make it so obvious? Rolling Gunther, I mean, he just like rolled him right to the ropes and threw his leg on there. But come on, man. I mean, yeah, that was a terrible look. And I've never known a replay to be played on an active screen in the arena. I've never seen that. And I've been to a few shows recently, as you know, Greg.
Yeah.
I've never seen that. So, that was that was an interesting touch. So, I mean, technically Gunther didn't win it via interference. I mean, Priest just got mad, and it gave Gunther time to recover. So, I mean, he did hit his moves. It wasn't like, Finn hit him with a foreign object or anything like that. So I guess you could rationalize it that way. But I just feel like you could have had Gunther just win the title, okay? Especially after the way it had been built up. I mean, I was actually excited about this match more so than I was other matches, and given the way they built it up, I think they could have just had Gunther win. And if you wanted to do the Finn turn, save that for another night, especially after you did a turn earlier in the evening. You could have done a rematch or something like that, and then Finn could have turned on him on like a Raw or something like that. So you could have saved that. So yeah, those were just my thoughts on that.
Andy,
well, you could also, I was going to say, you could also have had something where, say, Finn goes out there in support of Damian. Damian loses, and then Finn looks like he's going to support him on the way to the back, and then does the turn there to indicate some kind of rift, and then you can justify it or have some sort of verbal joust between them on Raw. But I agree. I also found it funny that he had to roll Gunther to the edge of the ring when Gunther should have done the roll himself, like at least once.
Yeah.
And that's two straight pay-per-views with Priest. At first he didn't kick out of the pin at the last show, and in here it's like, come on, man.
Well, 3 if you count getting his leg tangled up in the top rope the show before that. So he's had a bit of a rough go in some of these big matches. He's had a rough go
there, Damian.
Yeah.
And they were advertising so heavily about his documentary in between matches that he, of all the hardships and rising up to the ranks in the indies to get here.
Yeah,
for sure. All right, Andy, we appreciate the call. We got a couple people more on hold that we're going to get to, but always good to hear from you, and hope to hear from you again soon.
Perfect. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. All right. We've got a couple people on hold, Frank, so we're going to get to them now. We've got Dom, who is there live. We're going to go to him in just a moment. We've got Paul, so let's go to Paul here while we're waiting on Dom. Paul, he is on mute. Let's unmute him. Paul, welcome to Wrestling Night in America. What'd you think of SummerSlam tonight?
Oh, I thought it was fantastic. I had a great time.
You were there live?
Oh no, sorry, I was just watching on TV. Sorry.
Well, either way is fine. Yeah, as long as you had a good time, that's the important part. So, anything specific that you wanted to touch on here tonight?
Well, yes, I'm kind of surprised about all the advertising. Is that a normal thing? I haven't seen many of these pre-live events, and the vodka to the energy drinks, and it's like Peacock says we get no ads, but we got a bunch of ads on this show and just advertising from every which direction. Is that normal?
Yes, it's even more normal when you have the lower level tier because you get the paid ads, plus you get ads during the video packages that are showing to the more expensive the expensive tier of Peacock. So, unfortunately, that is the norm. It was one of the main talking points, I think, coming out of the last PLE that WWE did. I haven't heard as many complaints coming out of this one. I don't know if it's because there was less advertising or people are just kind of getting immune to it, but that is certainly the norm, unfortunately, for WWE PLEs.
I agree.
Yeah, can I ask a question about how much I have not been watching the shows that much. The Bloodline, how established are those guys? I know obviously Sikoa has been around for years, but these other guys, I honestly didn't even know who they were when they were all running in. And I know Fatu, I believe, was in MLW maybe many years ago. I'm not sure, but so how familiar are the audience with them, and how much have they been on TV?
They've been on TV very frequently since not long after SummerSlam. And so, you've got Tonga Loa and Tama Tonga, both veterans of New Japan Pro Wrestling, Guerrillas of Destiny. Michael Cole actually referred to them as that tag team name that they use there. And they've been portrayed as really strong. They won the tag team titles, Fatu and Tama Tonga, last night on SmackDown. So just as Solo Sikoa has been built up as the new leader of the Bloodline, these three of his henchmen have been portrayed as some of the strongest characters on television. I think in part, Frank, because the audience is likely unfamiliar with a lot of them. So WWE needed to go that extra mile to make sure people understood that, no, this isn't just three new wrestlers. These are three new wrestlers who are in the Bloodline, and you need to take them seriously.
Yeah, they've done a nice job, working around that. By the way, we have to acknowledge that the Baby Islanders are your tag team champions.
Yes, good point.
Haku and Tama's sons are your champs. I had to show my daughters the picture of Haku and Tama last night, so it's Bobby Heenan would be proud that someone in the Haku and Tama lineage are now champs. But anyway, no, they've listen, you're not gonna be familiar with everybody from every promotion. It's just something that not everybody watches multiple promotions. So it's just a matter of how you promote the guys. It's a matter of how you tell their story. And I think for the most part on the television, they've done a nice job talking about, these are guys that nobody wanted, and, now that Solo is in charge, he's bringing them in, kind of building up what the new arm of the Bloodline, the new subsidiary of the Bloodline is doing. So I think they've done a nice job with that. Greg, you and I, having watched New Japan, we're familiar with the Guerrillas of Destiny. So it's easier for us, because we're like, oh yeah, we know these guys. I don't watch MLW. I'm not sure if you do, but I know who Jacob Fatu is. So, who looks a lot like his father, by the way. It's scary. But anyway, they've done a nice job with that. And, they've at least, when we eventually talk about the main event tonight, they've at least now progressed towards, that story with Roman being back. And I'm really curious to see how the beats go moving forward with, the Bloodline conflict that's to come.
You mentioned us not talking about the main event. I'm putting X's next to every match that we've talked about, Frank. There's only 2 matches that I don't have X's next to, and the main event this is one of them. And I can't believe we've gotten this far into the show without people wanting to talk more about that. But Paul, we'll go back to you. Any other comments that you want to make or questions that you have about SummerSlam tonight?
Yeah, one last thing. So I liked the CM Punk match, and I liked it with Drew. I liked it with Seth, but my feeling when that match was done was like it's not done. I mean, they didn't really seem to accomplish anything, and that feud's gonna. I don't know where that feud goes from now, but it didn't have any, in my opinion, any kind of resolution. Like, we didn't watch the match and go, oh, something's done. Drew got the bracelet back, and there's going to be something with Seth going on there. So it's kind of like nice match, but if you're expecting any kind of resolution to that feud, I don't think you got it.
No, certainly the next chapter in not only the Drew Punk story, but also the Punk Rollins story. And that was something that I think Sean mentioned, feeling that it's going to be Punk and Rollins at WrestleMania. So if you want to look at it that way as, hey, this match is accomplishing several different things. It's continuing the Punk Drew storyline. It's really continuing the Punk Rollins storyline. Remember, they were supposed to face each other at WrestleMania this past year. And then it's also getting us to eventually Punk, Rollins, McIntyre in a triple threat. So, Frank, they had to serve a lot of masters in that match. And I think that's part of the reason people felt maybe that the story, I mean, certainly the bracelet aspect is one that people could have done without, but the fact that they were trying to juggle so many different stories and so many, they're toward the end, I think, of the Punk Drew story, but we're really just, if you're talking about WrestleMania, we're really still at the beginning of the Punk Rollins story. So these stories that are all interconnected are also at various points and various stages of the storytelling process, and that can make it difficult too.
Yeah, no, I didn't expect to get a resolution. I mean, it probably would have been nice though, because Punk and Drew has gone on since January. So you kind of did want to get somewhat of a resolution tonight, and we didn't get that. So I understand where Paul is coming from, but they got another show coming up, as I mentioned earlier. We got Bash at Berlin coming up. We got that Bad Blood show. So, there's a couple of matches in that series. And you're right. They still want to get to Punk versus Rollins. I mean, all the great feuds, all the blood feuds, typically go on for a while. Everybody wants to talk about SummerSlam 97 when they compare, this match anyway. And, that had Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. And Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, for all intents and purposes, they fought all of 1997, until we got to Survivor Series. And so it's, it's going to go on for a while. And we certainly did get we got a resolution in that match, but a lot left to be desired there. But that's a conversation for another day. But this was going to, with the insertion of Rollins, it was certainly going to continue past SummerSlam. It wasn't going to end.
Yeah, especially without a Punk victory there. I think that's kind of what we're looking at as the end point of that story anyway. Paul, thank you so much for the call. Good hearing from a fresh voice here tonight.
Yes, first time. It's amazing to talk to you guys. I've always listened. My first time to actually talk. So it's a great experience. Thank you very much.
Awesome. And thank you for listening. I mean, we love to hear from, the Seans of the world who call in frequently. Certainly they're more than welcome, but to hear a longtime listener call in for the first time and give their opinions, I think is certainly valuable as well. Dom was there live. Let's go to him next. Dom is resting comfortably at home now after taking in SummerSlam in Cleveland. Dom, thank you so much for being a live correspondent today and for getting home so quickly. It looks very comfortable. So what was your take on SummerSlam? We talked earlier in the show about how, based on social media reaction, based on reaction that we've seen in the chat, that it was a very polarizing show. A lot of people loved the show. A lot of people didn't like the show at all. So from being there live, where did you land on your feelings on the show?
Yeah, first of all, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound good.
Perfect. So I want to thank Sean Plichka, I think. It was in the chat earlier that directed me to where I could find the VIP code. So just a little bit of feedback, which I gave Wade yesterday. I really do miss being able to just dial the number from my phone and just get it going. So at least maybe consider putting in the VIP links. I don't know if that takes a lot of work because it probably rotates as far as the code goes, but it took me a while to find it. I was getting a little frustrated, but that's neither here nor there. As far as the show goes, I think from a live perspective, a lot of people went home happy. A lot of people were saying that was the best live event that they've ever been to. From start to finish, it seemed like everybody had a pretty good time. I know you guys haven't run down the full card, but I would say the matches that had the most crowd participation in would have been the first one. Everybody really was into Rhea and Liv. There was a lot of, let's go Rhea, let's go Liv kind of chants. It seemed like people didn't really care who won. They were just happy to be there.
I noticed that.
And then the other one would definitely be the LA Knight Logan Paul match, where every single action in the ring fielded a crowd response, whether it was just trading blows or the high spots, everything in between. They were loving that match. So I really think that was by far and away the best match of the night in terms of crowd participation, reactions, and so forth. Just to touch on the main event real quick, it did seem like Jacob Fatu did get legitimately injured. I don't know if you guys talked about that or if anybody said that they did see the referee throw up the X sign. So I don't like to jump to conclusions on that, but I do know, as just from being a follower of the product for a long time, when you see that X go up, that does mean that they need medical assistance. So hopefully it's not too serious. I'm sure if it does end up taking him out for an extended period, it's going to cause some problems as far as storyline goes. But again, I'm just hoping it's not too serious and he's back on his feet as soon as possible. Literally back on his feet. He couldn't get up. I mean, he was just planted there and he had to get helped out. So good luck to him. And then as far as the main event, it was a stale match. It really was. There was not much energy after the entrances. Everybody was just kind of sitting around waiting for the angle. And so it's kind of a shame because I mean, this is Lily, by the way. She likes to slither onto my lap.
Dogs are always welcome here on Wrestling Night in America.
I know. Lily's a sweetheart. Everybody's getting to meet Lily, by the way. I'm telling my girlfriend. And now Taco's going to come because he gets jealous. All right. Anyway, now I know we're, beautiful cat.
Yeah, he's been laying, by the way, I'm sitting at my the bar that we have downstairs, and he's been laying next to the computer. Like anytime I do a podcast, he jumps on and he lays next to it. Like one time I was on with Wade and he knocked over a cup of tea that I made for myself. I'm like, really?
Oh, wow.
So
that's okay. He gets a pass.
We got to introduce Biscuit to the Torch crowd here.
Nice to meet you. And we just had Taco make an appearance. But anyway, yeah, it just was a shame because I don't want that to always be the case. I don't know if it was a lack of build or just because, I mean, certainly from a talent perspective, both of those guys can put on a good match. And they just really needed to just figure out a way to engage the crowd better from start to finish. Because and the other thing, too, we were saying that it seemed like the crowd was getting a little tired. Yeah, it was a long night. A lot of people got there early. We showed up about 4:45 p.m. and it was already packed, and there was a buzz about the stadium, and so there was people. I mean, they were just chanting. Obviously, I mean, you guys have been to a live event. Folks will be walking around with woos and yes and so forth. But I mean, it was just nonstop. I mean, just constant chants. Just one guy would fire up one thing, another guy would keep going. So there's certainly a matter of fatigue and play, but I just felt like, I don't know if the wrestlers just, because they feed off the crowd energy. And so I think they kind of probably also sensed it and were like, let's just get to this angle because this isn't working. But otherwise,
I also think that's just kind of Solo style, right? He's methodical. He's trying to take Cody apart. Probably not the best style of match to have at the end of if you count the pre-show.
It's Roman style, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, at the end of a 5 or 6 hour show, it's, kind of a struggle for the fans to be interested in that style of match. So the timing didn't really work on that, but I think you're also right. There were a lot of matches on this card where people were kind of waiting for something to happen. The rumors of Roman Reigns, I'm sure, were making their way around the building. It was a discussion point in Cleveland. So people were waiting for that to happen. It was a Bloodline rules match. They were waiting for the Bloodline to get involved. You look at the first match of the show, I think most people expected something to happen with Dominic, so they were waiting for that. You look at LA Knight versus Logan Paul. Logan Paul always uses a weapon in his match. They were waiting for that moment. Even, McIntyre, Punk, you could say, similar thing. They were waiting for something to happen with Seth Rollins. So the downside of this show and the so many storylines that were advanced and the angles that were run is a lot of the matches you had people waiting on a moment that they either knew or thought was going to come, and it kind of made the body of the match a little pointless for people, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that absolutely is the case for the main event. Possibly Rhea and Liz too, but I mean, sure, they benefited from being the first match on the card. But folks were into every match. I mean, there were a lot of oohs and ahs and chants going on. So I don't know. I mean, even just following that LA Knight match, I mean, it just everybody was saying as they were walking out there that was the best match of the night. Some people did like the McIntyre Punk match, but I think I'm sorry, Frank alluded to that didn't seem like it was a resolution really. It didn't really have much of a resolve. And I think Seth, I also heard a lot of people say that Seth kind of saved that match because it didn't live quite up to the hype, and Seth was really the best part of it. So maybe
I think that's why
they put him in, or maybe it worked against them. I don't know.
I got to be honest with you. I think that's why Seth was inserted as the referee, because if you look at the match, and I know Sean was talking earlier that he liked the work, and generally I thought the work was fine. I mean, I didn't have a problem with it. But for the feud that they had, I don't think the match itself, if you take Seth out of the equation, I don't think the match lived up to the 6 months long blood feud that they had. And I think they were aware of that. And I think that's why Seth was inserted in that. You brought up the case. Yeah, you brought up the main event, and the whole situation was kind of weird to me. Like, Arn Anderson, first of all, it was great to see Arn. I don't know if
he got a pop. Yeah, we saw.
Okay, so you guys saw that video screen. Okay, I wasn't sure if you guys saw that live, but I thought it was weird how he talked about hey Cody, you got some friends and whatnot, and the friends that come out are Kevin Owens and Randy Orton, and it's like, well, we knew that. Like what did you tell us? Right. I guess the friends in high places was meant to be Roman Reigns. I guess that's what he was alluding to. I don't know, but I thought the match was dreadfully long. Like, for what they were trying to do, I thought it was absolutely dreadfully long.
Right.
Solo takes 2 shots, and I'm curious on the VIP side what they're going to say on the roundtable, but he takes 2 shots with the stairs. This is the second time now that Cody has used stairs. You go back to the match with AJ Styles. So that's kind of a weird thing with me. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if they're trying to plant seeds for a heel turn later, but he does that, hits the crossroads, and then Solo still kicks out. I mean, you're having people get pinned on one finisher throughout the night, and here he's kicking out after 2 shots of stairs. I mean, come on. And then it was a long time period. That's when Jacob comes out, and listen, I understand the mechanics of everything, but I thought they could have shortened it up. I mean, the match, according to Jason Powell, with 29 minutes. I mean, for Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa, which is a match we've seen on SmackDown. I mean, how many times have we seen that match? They could have done that in maybe 17, 18 minutes, to be quite honest. And they could have got, and to your point, Dom, you're spot on. Everybody knows what's happening. Everybody knows Roman is coming out. So why are we dragging this as long as we are? Especially what the show ended about, just about 11 o'clock. I mean, it's ridiculous. So
so Brock in the chat, Brock Benningfield, he said he thinks the Fatu injury might have affected the end, and I do think that something did change after that. I think something with the timing did get fluctuated to some degree, because I could even just tell by the looks on the wrestlers' faces and the ref, in a way where they were just kind of like, okay, well, let's maybe need to pivot a little bit here, because it just, something seemed off. And then also, not to mention, the timing of Roman's entrance was when Cody had the upper hand. So my thoughts was Cody might get taken out by Roman here and kind of swerve everybody, even though everybody was expecting obviously Roman to come and take his throne. Coming out with a OTC, I assume that stands for Original Tribal Chief or something like that. Coming out with that shirt, that would be contradictory to what I was just saying, I guess. Of course he wants to kind of reclaim his throne, but at the same time, I was just kind of like, well, why is he coming out now when Cody just hit this Cody cutter and looked like he was actually okay? I mean, he had the momentum at that time. I mean, maybe I didn't see something, but that's what it looked like to me. Like Cody had the momentum, and then Roman comes out, and then he just finishes off.
It looked like both Cody and Solo were down.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, when Roman came out, but I could be misremembering that as well. But I feel like that's the moment that his music hit. Dom, one thing I want to ask you from being there live, we had a correspondent in the chat earlier give the top 5 biggest reactions on the show, and one name was noticeably absent in that list, and that was CM Punk. So. From being there live, what kind of reaction did Punk get?
He got a great reaction for the entrance.
Okay.
People were singing along with the song. They were chanting his name, at the very, even earlier on in the show, they were just showing, any kind of promo clips or whatever. I wouldn't say it was one of the best pops of the night, but I wouldn't say that it wasn't in the top 5, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay.
He certainly had quite a following. When my girlfriend and I were just kind of standing in line for things, I was trying to look around to see what seemed to be like the most popular in terms of merch. And number 1 would have been Jey Uso's gear. I saw a lot of Yeet shirts, and then second easily would have been CM Punk, and then followed by some of the classics, whether it was Cena shirts or Rock gear, NWO, that kind of stuff. So definitely CM Punk had a great following. I would say a lot more with maybe like the females and like maybe I don't know the younger millennials, that sort of thing. They're really into CM Punk, but kids to adults, they all love the Yeet stuff. So he's mega over. But yeah, and then the other thing I think I forgot to mention was there was a photo of Paul Heyman at the Brown Stadium circulating that someone showed us in line, and somebody else mentioned it. So I'm surprised that Heyman didn't come out with Roman Reigns tonight. So I don't have any inside information on that, but other than he was there. And then also there was weird that it wasn't The Rock's mom that was out in the front row that Nia Jax hugged. So
yes.
There's also some speculation that Rock might have been in the building because like when does his mom go to a show that he's not that he's not in? I mean, maybe she has before, but I was kind of hoping that Roman would come out to help Cody, and then maybe Rock would also make an appearance. I mean, that's definitely wishful thinking, I guess. But
my high school buddy Tony was texting me. He was because he asked me, he goes, "Isn't that The Rock's mom?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, I wonder if we're going to see The Rock later." But now, I don't know the family tree. Every time I look at this family tree, I get isn't Rock and Nia first cousins, or they're cousins, right?
They're related in some way.
Yeah, they're related. Yeah.
Is it like Rock's mother and Naya's dad? Like,
no idea. No idea.
I just always heard that they're cousins, and that could be.
Yeah, I don't. I've looked at that NYE. I've looked at that family tree 100 times. And, okay, I got it, and then I go away from it and I forget it the next day. But I know they're cousins. So I don't, with the mother, I don't know if Naya's dad and her. Who the hell knows? But yeah, they're related.
Frank, any other questions for Dom from being there live that you want to ask?
Yeah, I got a few. I'll start with Tiffany Stratton. Was there a disappointment that she didn't cash in the briefcase? I mean, anytime somebody's got money in the bank and their music hits, there's going to be a pop. Was there kind of a disappointment that she didn't do it, or did people kind of just expect, that's just part of the story that they're telling?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess there were some chance of cash it in after the fact. So after Nia won, there was a lot of chance for cash it in because everything happened so fast. She ran out there, got immediately kind of knocked out, and then I think people just at that point were like, well, I don't know, what's she going to do at this point? They let the match play out, and then they still wanted to see it, but I don't know. I mean, at least what I was saying to my friends was, if they want to sell that pink briefcase, they're going to have to let that marinate for a couple months because I don't know if it's on the shop or not yet, but I imagine they'll merchandise that. So they got to let her carry that thing for a couple months. I wouldn't say there was a lot of disappointment. People were happy to see her. There were a lot of Tiffany fans. There were some signs. My friend's kid had a Tiffany sign. So she has a good fan base, a great following, and she's got a lot more time to show us what she's got. And so I think they don't need to rush that.
Not my girls. They can't stand her. I fight with them all
really?
the time because every time I look at them, I go like this, and they're like, "Stop!" They get mad at me all the time. So, the other thing Greg, I don't want to step on your toes here. We haven't talked about this match, but Braun Breaker winning the Intercontinental title, it kind of like didn't land for me. I expected it, so I was fine with it, but the match didn't feel like it hit. Am I misinterpreting that from an in-person perspective? Hello?
I'm sorry. Did you ask me a question?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
I was distracted. I'm sorry about that. I had girlfriend aggro. Go ahead.
No,
you'll have to repeat that. I'm sorry.
I was asking, and Greg, I don't mean to step on your toes. We haven't talked about the Braun Breaker Sammy match yet, so I was just curious. Like watching it on television, it just didn't feel like it landed. Like it wasn't awful, it wasn't bad, but it just didn't feel like this moment. Anytime somebody new or an up-and-comer wins a championship for the first time, it should feel special. And it just didn't have it for me. And I was talking to Zach Haydorn about this offline. And, we were kind of talking about the match. And his thing was, if it was going to be a dominant match, make it a dominant match. And it was, but it kind of wasn't. Like they gave Sammy a little bit too. So maybe that's why it didn't. I don't know. It just didn't feel like it landed for me. Tell me how that was.
I could understand from a TV perspective that it didn't hit that hard. And no pun intended. But I think they were onto something in regards to giving him the title in Cleveland. We have this thing with the Browns and then the dog pound, a lot of barking at Browns events. And so the crowd was eating that up. There was a lot of barking, so they were behind him. I would say it was probably close to a 70-30 split. People were behind Braun Breaker most of the match. They didn't dislike Sam, and there were certainly no boos for him, but they loved that barking. And so from the I don't know how well it came across on TV, but I was in the dog pound. That's a section behind the touchdown area, like south of the the field or whatever. And we were just barking the whole match. So.
I didn't even connect that. I didn't even think about that. Greg, did you even think about that? I didn't make that at all.
I did not.
That's a good call. I didn't think about it.
Yeah, they might have did that on purpose. That's why they saved it instead of Money in the Bank or whenever their last match was. So, and it was a good match. It was not the refreshment match, that's for sure. That was the Nia Bailey. As soon as they showed the promo for that, people started exiting to go refill their drinks or use the restroom or whatever. So but they turned it around. I think by the end of the Bailey Nia match, people were into it, but they weren't shy about showing that, hey, this might be the match we care least about, so we're gonna go get our food or merch at this point. So
sure.
But Sammy's still over. People were singing a song coming out and everything, but I think they gave Braun Breaker that edge with that atmosphere. It really worked well for him.
Yeah, I was surprised that the match was so short because it seemed like their last pay-per-view match was sort of a teaser for what they were going to do long form when Breaker was eventually going to be crowned champion, and you kind of expected it at this show. So it really wasn't like a squash for Breaker where he just dominates Sammy, but it wasn't a long, 4-star match where Breaker announces his arrival on the scene as a top level wrestler either. It was kind of somewhere in between those two. So I think that was kind of just the timing of it was a little strange in terms of the match layout. So is there anything else, Dom, that you want to point out from being there live that we may have missed on TV or anything that was particularly interesting to you to note?
No, I guess not. I mean, they had a great attendance. People seem to be, leaving there pretty happy. Roman Reigns is definitely welcomed back, and people were still cheering for him even on our way out. As we were exiting the arena, there was a lot of Roman this and that, and real tribal chief. So, I think yeah, it was worth the price of admission. Cleveland did a great job hosting it. They did a good job all weekend. And I think that it was a overall success. I mean, they moved a lot of freaking merchandise. I'll tell you that. Between
that I don't doubt.
Yeah,
I can only imagine
that store that they had at our mall downtown there in Public Square. I mean, they saw thousands of people through there. Lines for that at the arena last night, and then at the stadium today. I'm a little bit of a shill because I've been a shareholder of the company for over a decade or whatever. So like I like to see I'm like, yeah, I'm making that money and I'll get my dividends. So
well, thank you for offering that thank you for offering that full disclosure.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time because I flaunt WWE stuff at the gym, at work, or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, you should watch it. Well, by the way, I invested interest, but you still should watch it. But when everybody was saying, 5 years ago that WWE was dead and pro wrestling wouldn't make it, I stuck to my guns, and I'm really glad to see the product flourishing the way that it is now, and certainly the change of the guard, if you will, I think helped that a lot. But I honestly, and I'll drop all the corporate speak in just a moment, but I give a lot of credit to Nick Khan for what he's done with the deals that he's made, with the partnerships that he's been able to provide and do for the company, and just from an exposure level. He's been, Triple H is on the creative side, is what we see on TV, but the machine in general, I think, Nick Khan at the helm. When I knew that they hired him, that was during the pandemic in 2020, the stock was really low. I told folks, I said, now's a great opportunity. I believe in this Nick Khan guy. They brought him in as president. I knew about Nick Khan's ties to The Rock and obviously Hollywood CAA, the creative artist agency or whatever. I mean, I was like, they brought in just a superstar here to take the reins from a business perspective, and I believed in it then. I still believe in it now. I'm just very happy, even if I didn't own stock. I'm just happy to see that people are back into it and like Rock coined, like wrestling's cool again. So I'll leave it with that.
All right, Tom. Go ahead, Frank.
Just one thing before I let Don go. Sean brought up a comment here. They do so much better stuff with merchandise than AEW, and I can attest to that. Having gone to 3 AEW pay-per-views since December, it is amazing the lack of merchandise that they have at their shows. I mean, we went to Forbidden Door, not one MJF shirt. MJF is from Long Island. Like, are you out of your freaking mind? We went to, where did I go? I went to WrestleMania Night 2 last year, right? Greg, I talked to you that night. And then about a year before, I went to SmackDown. There were shirts all over the place. Like, you couldn't go 2 feet without seeing some kind of shirt. And the variety, the stars, the show specific, WrestleMania, I was there, all of that stuff. Like, you couldn't go 2 feet without
the way
buying
they do the city specific stuff, the
NFL
partnership with the belts. They were selling those Browns belts for I think $600 tonight, and there were people buying them.
Oh, you can't top. And what AEW doesn't realize is that one of the biggest connective tissues that you have with your fans is your merchandise. I mean, you get people to buy shirts, you get people to buy figures, belts, or whatever. That's something that's going to keep them connected, and then you wear it and somebody else, oh, what is that? Oh, yeah. Oh, I used to watch wrestling. And it just, exactly. It's So I just wanted to highlight Sean's comment and expand on it a little bit. Sorry.
No, absolutely. But I really appreciate you guys let me on here. I didn't mean to rush things. I decided to at least let my girl get in the house, take care of the dogs, and
Understood.
We're gonna go relax. But it was a fun evening. That was her first show. She's never been to a wrestling show, so she got to see SummerSlam, and she said she had a great time. She's definitely as casual as they come, but she was with it from start to finish. So kudos to them, everybody involved. This was a good night. So. Awesome. You guys have a great night. Thanks again, Greg. You guys do it great here. Nice to meet you, Frank.
Yeah, good talking.
Thank you. Thank you, Dom. Appreciate your live perspective, of course. Non-fans, if you ever want to get them into a product, you take them to a live event, because I've taken a number of non-fans or very casual fans to live events, and they've all been very impressed. I mean, even if wrestling isn't for them, like just the ambiance and just being there and being amid everything, it has a way of just kind of drawing you in. And so I'm not surprised to hear that about Dom's girlfriend, or it's an event. And I mean, a stadium show, first event. I mean, that's crazy. That's
I'll
awesome.
tell you a quick funny story. Not much of a story, but about going about 3 years ago, right? So I went to a Dynamite. I went to the December 8th Dynamite in at the UBS Arena, and they taped Rampage that night. So Tyler was doing the Rampage post show. So I already committed to doing a post show with him because I was in the building, So I already watched the show live. I didn't even have to watch the show on TV, but I did it anyway. And the funny thing was, I was on a Los Angeles layover that night, so it worked out fine. I was unencumbered, no distractions or whatever. No, no offense to my family, but happened so that night, SmackDown was in LA, right? And like, it didn't dawn upon me, and then I just looked, like, while we're on the way out there, and I looked, and lo and behold, well, my first officer, who I was flying with, my co-pilot, who's a captain now, but at the time he was a co-pilot. He was actually a lapsed fan. Like, we got to talk. We were sitting having drinks at the bar. He's like, "Oh yeah, I used to watch with Stone Cold and The Rock." And I stopped watching. I go, "Dude, would you have gone?" Because I explained the situation. I said I was doing the post show, so I couldn't go to the event. But I said, "Would you have gone with me to whatever the arena is over there? I forget the Staples Center, whatever it's called now." He's like, "I totally would have went. Are you kidding? It would have been great to go." So just to your point about live events, how that pulls people in. And anytime I'm on the road and there's a wrestling show, I always ask. And I get mixed answers. Oh, I'm meeting a friend or whatever. So it's just like, okay,
For sure.
Yeah.
Let's close up tonight. We had a fantastic discussion with folks in the chat and live callers and everything. But let's end with an email here from John. He says, what an awesome SummerSlam, hot opening and a great match between Liv and Rhea. I thought Dom and Liv embracing just like I predicted on this show last week, and I think it was executed flawlessly. Dirty Dom lives up to his name. Liv working on Rhea's shoulder, and that being a major focus in the commentary, telling the story and mentioning key milestones like Liv being the last person to pin Rhea and other key events in the storyline was very well done. But I am wondering what Dom's reasoning will be, because I think them saying Dom ended this important relationship with Rhea because Liv showed him more attention and he felt like Rhea wasn't giving him enough attention could get Dom even more heel heat. But it also would be weird since Liv admitted from the beginning she was using Dom so she could take him away from Rhea. I guess they could say that Liv and Dom genuinely fell in love. Perhaps Dom was just sick of Rhea and Priest for some reason. Maybe he just loves a certain kind of blonde woman. I absolutely love the way they did the Rhea Dom Liv match and story. I'm usually very focused on little details and things requiring a huge suspension of disbelief, but the minor issues you talk about with this match, I don't care, to be honest. Question: what do you think Dom's reasoning will be for turning on Rhea? And the question 2, when do you think Rhea will regain the championship? Could you delay it until WrestleMania? So I think Dom's reasoning could be that Liv showed him more attention. Rhea and Dom always had kind of a strange physical relationship where they were in a relationship, but you didn't get the heat. It wasn't like Edge and Lita, right? From back in the day. And I think Dom and Liv could be that if they wanted to go that direction. But I also could think it could be based somewhat in Judgment Day, where Dom feels disrespected by the members of Judgment Day. He's been kind of treated like a little brother in a lot of ways. So maybe he wanted more, and that was his reasoning for turning as well. What do you think ultimately they settle on for his reason?
Yeah, I think you gave a couple of sound reasons there. I mean, we could, go back to, some of the Raws in recent times, and we can certainly see where Dom was kind of treated as a little brother, to your point. And Dom never felt like somebody that Rhea was in love with or was really, you know what I mean? Like not somebody that it was more, somebody that she was using. And then, when she went on the shelf, Liv just stepped in, and it's, like your typical story, here comes this cute blonde, and all of a sudden she's giving him attention, and she's giving him the eye, and, somewhere along the way, hard to say when, but, um, he just, he fell for her, and he had to kind of string it along a little bit to tell the story. And, maybe there was something, maybe we're going to find out that there was a specific point where Dom felt disrespected. Where that was, it's hard to say. They could make anything up, but, he decided to, because he was disrespected, well, I'm going to disrespect you on a big stage. And that's SummerSlam. So I think, that's something that, we could see. I mean, Liv's comment about, guys like Dom usually go for girls like me. Maybe they had it all set up then, or maybe not. I mean, it could go any way. It really could. Yeah. I mean, maybe Dom fell that night, and his anger was actually masking how he really felt, Yeah. So it could go any. Those are just some of the options for the ways it can go.
And the second question, when do you think Rhea regains the championship? Could you delay it till WrestleMania? I think that would be tough.
Yeah.
I do see her getting the title back at some point. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the answer is to this one. Can they stretch it to WrestleMania? And if not, when do you see Rhea getting the title back?
I don't see it being stretched to WrestleMania, because then what? You're going to do a rematch? You're going to do Liv and Rhea at WrestleMania? No, I don't see that. I mean, Liv, to be perfectly honest, probably shouldn't be your world champion. I mean, she's not about being the world champion. She's more about, how she looks, and she's more about, her relationship with Dom, and she's going to be more about her relationship with Dom. She hasn't really been about being a champion and defending the title and, things like that. So I don't see that. When she loses it, I don't know. And to whom, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's.
I think she has to lose it to Rhea, doesn't she?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know who else I don't know who else you get involved. So yeah, if anything, I see Rhea having a bigger, higher profile match at Mania. Who that's with? Is that with Bianca Belair? Is that with Jade? We always talked about the Rhea Bianca match, so that could be something that's on the horizon. But no, I can't see Rhea. I can't see them dragging this out till WrestleMania. That's going to be, especially with Liv as a champion, that's going to be a stretch.
A couple other questions we'll rapid fire through here as we get to the end of the show. John's comments on Punk Drew. He said, it was also very interesting because Punk was who I predicted to win, but I was also glad Drew won. But I wasn't upset with the Punk looking like a lunatic and effectively costing himself the match booking. That's because it's been a major part of the story that Punk is a hothead who doesn't let things go, and he's been acting this way in storyline. So him being obsessed with his bracelet and having this tunnel vision, I was personally fine with it. Plus, he's probably going to turn heel within the next 6 months, and Drew will be right that Punk is a corporate, petty, arrogant, compulsively obsessed hypocrite who is not the guy he was years ago. Greg, you and many others at the Torch seem to be of the opinion that Punk should be a babyface for a long time, but I consider this an amazing double turn between him and Drew. Question, what do you think of my analysis defending the booking of Punk in the title match, or in this match? Well, I mean, McIntyre was the guy who used a low blow and tried to use a chair. So those are very heelish things. So I'm not sure there was really a double turn here, but could Punk turn heel 6 months from now? Of course,
Yeah.
I think we're still in the honeymoon stage of Punk in WWE, where fans still want to cheer him. You heard Dom say it was probably a top 5 babyface reaction on the show tonight. So why not ride it as far as you can? But I do think if you are to defend the booking of Punk here, and not many people are going out on that limb tonight, but if you are to defend the booking, it is what John is saying, which is it fits in the story of Punk being obsessive about certain things and not being able to let certain things go. And I think that's where people get the idea that WWE is testing him, because that's not just a complaint of Punk in this storyline. It is a legitimate complaint about CM Punk, Phil Brooks, right?
Sure.
So I think that's where people are seeing that in there. And so if you're reading the storyline as John is, you can kind of understand why people are coming to the conclusion that WWE is trying to test him because of the similarities between Phil Brooks and CM Punk, the character. So if it turns out that a main component of what they're doing with this story in the coming weeks is to emphasize how much CM Punk can't let things go, and they use the bracelet as that example, does that make the booking tonight a little better than it seemed at first blush?
Yeah, I guess we're going to have to see. I mean, I think for Punk to, eventually he's going to have to overcome it, right? And not be as obsessed. And maybe that's how he beats Drew, and that's the story that they tell. And maybe that does make this better. But again, with Seth involved and, Drew, I mean, Drew's not going away. So they're all of these elements, they're all going to be around each other for some time. It's really hard to say. I mean, like, I'm not, I don't want to misrepresent how I feel. I'm not completely down on what they did. I mean, I completely understand, how they handled it tonight, him being obsessed with the bracelet, and that's what ended up costing him the match. That's the story that they're telling. So I'm not, completely against it, but it does make Punk look dumb for allowing a bracelet to cost him a match against a guy who injured him at the Royal Rumble and cost him his WrestleMania match. It does make him look weak. So, yeah, I guess he'll have to overcome that. How they do that, how they get there remains to be seen. I don't know how they're going to tell that story, but yeah, I guess we're just going to have to, see how they handle that.
John also says, overall, very impressed with most of the booking decisions and matches, and it was more or less what I was expecting, other than Nia pinning Bayley and a few other things. On Balor costing Priest the title, he says, I also thought that the reasoning of Finn being jealous or of Priest and this brewing over the last several months was pretty well told, and I'm in favor of this, even though I predicted on last week's show that Finn would cost him inadvertently. I'm excited to see where this storyline goes next. One thing I didn't like was the constant sponsorship mentions from Michael Cole, especially. I'm not talking about ad breaks, but Cole's commentary during important moments. I was fine with them in general because it mimics real sports, but when your commentators are mentioning it as Roman Reigns is walking up the aisle, it was very awkward. There were very emotional moments going on and breakups and surprise returns. And Michael Cole goes, Roman Reigns, he's back, he's back, he's back. This moment is brought to you by this American vodka you should drink. So his question is, what did you think of Michael Cole specifically constantly inserting sponsorship mentions during tense and emotional moments? I didn't notice it as much, Frank. Maybe that's because I was I was at a party watching this with other people and maybe not hearing everything that was going on. Commentary was not my first priority for much of the show, but I was wondering maybe if you had caught on to that and heard that. I mean, sponsorship, they had not just the Prime Energy during sponsorship, but they had 3 sponsors on the ring canvas on the show, and then on the on the barricades and stuff like that. So I've always thought that as a business, WWE should use as much of their canvas, both literally and figuratively, to make money with sponsorship. So, I don't have a huge problem with it. But what did you think? Did you notice it as John did or no?
I didn't notice it. I've gotten to a point with WWE commentary where it is what it is. I mean, I tweeted out early in the show when Pat McAfee is throwing poop jokes out there that I'm not in the mood for his what. And I think from that point, I just tuned out. And by the way, I don't know if you noticed this. It didn't seem like Corey Graves was happy to be there. And I don't know if he has a problem with Pat, but he just did not I don't know. Did you notice that or no?
Well, I didn't notice it again because I wasn't paying attention to the commentary for most of the show, but it was on social media quite a bit that people thought that Graves and McAfee didn't have much chemistry. I will say it's not to the point of Jerry the King Lawler and Matt Stryker on commentary with Michael Cole, which if you remember, like there were times where Lawler wanted to jump over the table at Stryker because he was just so fed up with him, and that was not storyline. Like that,
I know.
that was legit heat. So it didn't reach that level of annoyance, but it did sound like to a lot of people there was a lack of chemistry there with Graves and McAfee. John's final couple questions here on Roman Reigns. He says, I thought this was also very well done. Left no room for ambiguity. WWE could have been cute and had his music hit and Solo being distracted and Cody winning. But that look Roman and Cody shared was cool. I could see that Roman Reigns respects him, as Paul Heyman said. My guess is that the new Bloodline will brutally attack Roman on the coming SmackDown, and he will disappear for at least a few more months. So question number 1, do you also think this is a temporary return for Roman? And question 2, do you think it was a little heavy-handed that the commentators were talking up the possible tension between Roman and Cody as Roman came out, even though Paul Heyman had already said Roman respects Cody after losing to him at WrestleMania? I certainly don't think that Reigns is going to become a weekly presence on TV going forward. Whether it's an injury angle or whether it's just he shows up to basically stake his claim to being the tribal chief and then maybe goes away for a little while longer. That could be the case, but I do think that he might be on TV a little more often, but I don't think it's a kind of a full-fledged return. As far as the announcers being heavy-handed, yes, Paul Heyman did say that Roman respected Cody, but Paul Heyman is a pretty well-known liar and heel within the WWE ecosystem. So I'm not sure how many people actually bought that when Paul Heyman said it. But no, I didn't think it was too heavy-handed for me in terms of the respect. I think that was something important that you want to set out there and make clear, depending, of course, upon where they go with the storyline. So, Frank, the two questions, what kind of return is this for Roman? Do you see him being back on a weekly or semi-regular basis or not? And then were the announcers heavy-handed connecting the respect between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes?
I mean, I could see Cody. I could see Roman back for maybe this week's SmackDown on the heels of SummerSlam. I mean, usually you have a little bit of a higher viewership coming out of a PLE, so I could see them having him show up there. I could also see like advertising him coming the following week, because if you're going to have the high viewership, then you can announce it and then hope that you hold the viewers for, the next week's show. So, I see him being on television relatively soon. Now, whether it's a regular thing, no, I don't think so. I mean, he wasn't a weekly fixture, for some time up until when he lost the championship. So, it's going to be spread out enough, assuming that they're doing Bloodline versus Bloodline at War Games, it's going to be spread out enough to get him to that match. Whether he works a match before that, whether he does something at the Berlin show, who knows? Maybe they do Roman versus Solo, and that kind of adds fuel to the feud. So we'll see. As far as the heavy-handedness on the Heyman, you'll have to fill me in on this Heyman comment. Did I miss that? Was that like on social media? Was that on the pre-show?
I think that was probably some time ago.
Okay, I don't.
Nothing recent.
Okay, I mean, I'm pretty sure. I don't deny that it was mentioned, but I mean, if you think about it, it makes some sense. I mean, they had, he worked. Roman worked Cody twice, so it's very possible that when go to Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed. I mean, Apollo and in storyline, they had 2 matches, and Apollo had all the respect in the world for Rocky. You know what I mean? And he helped him win the title in 3. So it's possible for that to happen. So and we've seen it before. We've seen rivals in wrestling. Sting and Flair were against each other for years, and then they were on the same side at points. I'm sure Dusty and Flair, were on the same side at points. So it is possible, for rivals to have respect, especially after having two high-profile matches at a WrestleMania.
A grudging respect, if you will.
Yes.
For sure. Frank, it's been almost 2 hours on the dot.
Yes.
We've had some good discussions about SummerSlam here. Before we let you go ahead and plug your work for the Torch and all that you do.
Right. Well, my only assignment right now is Pro Wrestling Then and Now, and I got a pretty good co-host lined up for my next show next week, and that is, of course, you. You and I, as you did last year, we did SummerSlam '93. Well, this year we're going to be doing SummerSlam '94, so kind of staying in a 30-year look back, and that's what I've been doing all year. It's kind of helped me streamline the show a little bit. And just staying with 1 year, just seeing the progression of that. So, yeah, we'll be doing SummerSlam '94 from the United Center in Chicago. So excited to be talking about that. Yeah, that's my only assignment for the Torch. I'm kind of moonlighting, kind of dipping my hands in a couple of pots. I'm writing for our old friend Zach Haydorn over at Brass Ring Media, doing the hits and misses for WWE PLEs. So that's going to be coming out. If you go to substack.com, Brass Ring Media, you'll find my, I call it Smooth and Rough Landings, kind of a play on the day job. So that usually drops a couple of days after each PLE. So check that out and look for me on social media at Frank Peteani. That's at Frank, Peteani, Facebook, X, and Instagram.
Awesome. Frank, thank you so much for being my co-host today and helping guide us through SummerSlam.
Appreciate you having me, Greg. Always great working with you.
Of course. Appreciate it. And don't forget, if you're new to pwtorch or the YouTube version of pwtorch, we are here each and every Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, unless there is an AEW or WWE pay-per-view /PLE. Then we are here, just like we are tonight, going on the air right after that show goes off the air, discussing that show in depth with VIP callers and folks in the chat. So we hope you'll join us again next Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, live right here on youtube.com/pwtorch. And then, of course, we've got two big shows coming up at the end of the month, AEW All In and WWE Bash in Berlin. You can find all of my work for the Torch at pwtorch.com, my VIP audio show, Greg Parks Out Loud. You can find my whole page column in the Torch newsletter. You can find this past week, I was on the flagship with Wade Keller right here on the pwtorch.com, as well as the 12-minute hot take on the YouTube channel. So a lot going on for me, for the Torch. Very exciting times here with a lot of the stuff going up on YouTube. So we appreciate you stopping by to listen. We appreciate you stopping by to watch us now as well. And you can find me on social media at Greg M. Parks. Thank you again. Until next Sunday, this has been Wrestling Night in America.